Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Sony Creative Software Production Studios. I'm Gary Rebholz, and today we're going to have another live webinar, and we're going to talk about creating Blu-ray discs and DVDs. We've done several of these webinars already, and consistently the feedback that I've been getting, one of the things that you've been wanting to see is some DVD architect training. So we're going to address that today. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about creating both DVDs and Blu-ray discs in both Vegas Pro and DVD Architect Pro. Now, I'm going to be using the Pro versions, but most of what I talk about here is also doable in the Studio version. So if you're using the Studio versions of Vegas Movie Studio and DVD Architect Studio, you can follow along, and most of these techniques will work for you in your application as well. Again, we have a chat window, so you can fire off some questions. We'll try to get to as many of those as we can in about the 15 minutes at the end of the hour here. But for 45 minutes or so, I'm going to talk about creating DVDs and Blu-ray discs. So let's take a look at the interface here and get started. Okay, so let's just take a second to talk about what you get when you buy Vegas Pro or Vegas Movie Studio HD Platinum. With both of those video editing applications, you get a version of DVD Architect. So for the Pro version, if you buy Vegas Pro, excuse me, if you buy Vegas Pro, obviously you get DVD Architect Pro. And if you buy Vegas Movie Studio HD Platinum, you get DVD Architect Studio. But also, and this is sort of quiet, but it's really significant, you get, when you buy Vegas Pro, in addition to the DVD authoring software, you also get the Dolby Digital AC3 encoder, either the Pro version or the Studio version, depending on which version of Vegas you buy. And so that you don't pay any extra to get that AC3 encoding. And when you're creating your DVDs and your Blu-ray discs, AC3 is going to be the audio format that you use to put your files on those discs. So that's really a significant inclusion with both of these pieces of software. Now, I've talked about already that we're going to discuss two different types of discs that that you can create with our software, and those are DVDs and Blu-ray discs. First, we're going to take a look at making single movie discs. In other words, discs that have no menu structure. Basically, you take the disc, you put it into your player, and it just starts playing the movie. Those are great for maybe you need to make a quick DVD to send off to a client, or just to preview it on the player for yourself and see what it looks like, but you don't have the menu structure and so forth finished yet. You can just burn the single movie DVD or single movie Blu-ray disc, and you can do that right out of Vegas Pro and Vegas Movie Studio, as you'll see in a moment. And the other type of disc, of course, is the menu-based disc that has custom menus, multiple video and audio assets, compilations, playlists, and all the other things that go along with a fully menued DVD or Blu-ray disc. And the neat thing about creating these discs in DVD Architect is that when you build a menu structure, that same structure is going to work for DVDs and Blu-ray discs. So if you need to deliver both for some reason, you don't need to do the task twice. You can do it once and burn to both, and I'll show you that as we move along here too. All right, so let's get to it. Let's start out by looking at Vegas Pro. Now here I've got a project in Vegas Pro. You can see that I've got a couple of tracks of video and some audio and so forth. And let's say we're now done with this project and we want to deliver it. We want to just burn a one-off DVD that we can send to a client so they can review it quickly, review the video edit quickly. So to do that, just choose Tools, Burn to Disk, and you've got several options here. The two that we're interested in for this discussion are the DVD option and the Blu-ray option. I'll select DVD for now, and it brings up a dialog box. I'll zoom in on that so you can see it a little bit better. And this pretty simple dialog box, it just gives us a It gives us a few parameters that we need to choose in order to burn the disk properly. So I'll just go through this real quickly. The video format drop-down list, you'll just need to choose. Basically, you have a couple of different, you have three different basic choices to make here. First of all, are you burning an NTSC disk or a PAL disk? In other words, are you burning for somebody in the United States or Japan, or are you burning for somebody in Europe where they watch PAL? So you need to make that choice. You also need to choose whether or not you're going to use standard 4:3 or a widescreen format 16:9, and that's available both in NTSC and PAL. And finally, you want to pay some attention to your frame rate. Is it an interlaced file that you want to, or interlaced disk that you want to deliver, or do you want to deliver a progressive frame disk? And so you just make those choices here. Choose your burn drive from the list here and your burn speed from this drop-down list, and you're ready to go. Now the burn speed, you might want to do a little bit of testing with your particular burner and your computer just to find a speed that you know is going to work. A lot of times I'll burn at maybe half the possible maximum speed just to make sure that the computer can keep up with the burning operation so you don't end up with a bad disk. But once you've made those choices, and I'm not going to do this now, but you would just click OK, and off you go. I'll cancel that and zoom back out here. And if we want to burn a Blu-ray disc, it's basically the same operation. Choose Tools, Burn Disk, and Blu-ray Disc. This time the dialog box is a little bit more, there's a little bit more to it, but it's still the same basic idea. You've just got some choices to make. With a Blu-ray disc, you can choose to burn either an MPEG-2 file or a Sony AVC file. My preference is AVC. I think it's a little bit higher quality, but you can use either one of those, and you make that choice here in the video template drop-down list. Again, I skipped over it for some reason, but for the video format drop-down list, again, sorry, confusing myself. That is what we just looked at, where you make the choice between MPEG and Sony AVC. The video template drop-down list, again, you're going to choose your frame rate, whether you're doing interlaced or progressive, and so forth. So that you make those choices here, your frame size, make those choices just by choosing the template. You can choose an audio template, some other options here, but basically it's the same as what we looked at in the other dialog box, where we're just going to select our choices, point it to the drive, the burner drive that we're using, select our burn speed, and click OK. And again, I'm not going to do that because you don't need to sit here and watch a DVD burn, but that's really all there is to it. Once you've created a video in Vegas Pro or Vegas Movie Studio HD Platinum, you can burn those discs right from the timeline. Now, if you're looking at making a disc that has a menu structure, then you're going to want to use DVD Architect. And so I've opened up DVD Architect Pro 5.2 here. And I'm not going to have time to go through every single aspect of the application, but I'm going to try to touch on some of the major features, or some of the features that I often get questions on when you send me questions about the webinars, or when you are looking for advice about DVD Architect. Some things come up pretty consistently, and those are the kind of things that I'm going to try to touch on in this webinar and give you a general feel for how the application works, but also maybe dive in a little bit to a couple of the tools that I think a lot of people don't use as much as they should, and can really help you in your projects. All right, so let's go back to DVD Architect here and take a look. Now, the first thing that you're going to do when you open up a new DVD Architect project is you need to let the application know whether you want to work on a DVD or a Blu-ray. And as I said earlier, you can use the same project to burn both of these, but you kind of have to make a choice right up front which one you want to use as your main working environment. And so to do that, choose File, Properties. And in the Properties dialog box, zoom in on that a little bit. In the Project Properties dialog box, you have a few choices to make. And let me just get that centered so you can see it. Now there are a number of choices in this dialog box, but really there are only a few that you'll probably be concerned about most of the time. First of all, disc format. Do you want it to be a DVD? It comes up as DVD by default. Or do you want to create a Blu-ray disc? And to change it, just click it and choose the one you want. I'll leave it at DVD for now. The video format, well, for a DVD you don't have a choice. It has to be an MPEG-2 file. So we're just going to leave it as MPEG-2. And for you need to decide whether you're going to deliver it as a standard format or widescreen format, and just choose the aspect ratio. And I'll choose 16:9 to work on a widescreen format. The resolution, here again you've got NTSC and PAL, so you're going to want to choose the appropriate resolution for your project. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it at NTSC 720 by 480. And those really are the major parameters that you're going to choose here. So let's just go ahead and click OK. And when we do that, I'll zoom back out a little bit. You can see that my workspace here has now switched to a widescreen format. Okay, now you've got your project properties set up. It's time to start building your DVD. So let me zoom all the way out. And the first thing you're going to want to do probably is to start designing the main menu here and make it start looking like what you want it to look like. By default, it comes up looking like this. It's called Menu 1, and it has this artwork in the back. Now, of course, we can change the text, so I just select the text and click the Edit Text button, and I'll just say that's the name of our DVD. And of course, all the standard word processing things. I could change the font, and I could change the bolding and the size and shadow and all that stuff. But I'll just leave all that for now. That's easy enough to figure out how to do. The background is, you've got some flexibility on what you want to do there. You can choose the theme that it comes up with, and we could just go ahead and work with this theme, and that would be what our background looks like. Or we can use a couple of different options here. We have, down here in the bottom is a window docking area, very much like the window docking area in Vegas Pro. If you're familiar with that, you've got a number of different windows docked to the bottom of the screen here. And one of those is the Themes tab. So click the Themes tab. It opens the Themes window. And you've got a number of different themes that you can use for your DVD menu. So if this was some sort of American football themed project that I'm working on, I'd drop that in, and now I have new menu artwork. Now, the thing I want you to notice is, notice that the text, the menu text, also changed style and position. And if you look at the thumbnails down here in the Themes window, and I'll zoom in on those so you can see them a little bit better, you can see that those different thumbnails have different shaped and different styled buttons. So when you add a theme to your project, like I've just done here with that football theme, you're not only dictating what the background looks like, but you're also dictating what the buttons look like and where they're positioned, and the menu title as well. Okay, let's go back out. And so I could just go through this window here, and just by double-clicking these, I can choose a different theme. So if I'm working on some sort of a corporate video or something, I might choose one of these corporate themes and so forth. Now, you can also add custom artwork to the menu. So if you have a piece of art that you want to use for your main menu, you could just drop it in by using the Explorer window and navigating to it and dropping it in. I can even drop in a video file if I want to. So let's say I want this taking wing video to be my menu background. I'm going to right-click that and drop it onto the window. Oops, sorry, user error. Let's just drop that onto the window. And now I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to right-click it, drop it onto the menu, and choose Set Background Video and Audio. And that becomes my new background. So just like that, I can override the background art. Now, one thing that I want to point out here is that when you've applied a theme like I have, I applied that corporate theme, and then I overrode the background artwork with this new artwork, but the theme is still in place. So the buttons that I add are still going to look like what the buttons on that theme look like. The menu title looks like the title for that theme. And so one approach would be to find a theme that has buttons that look like what you want them to look like, apply that theme, and then replace the background artwork. Now in this case, there happens to be a theme that works perfectly with the theme of my video here, so I'm going to go down and choose that, and that's this sunshine theme. So I'm going to drop that in, and that becomes my new background artwork. Okay, so once you've got your theme in place, your artwork in place, you probably want to add a piece of audio to it. So I'm going to go back to my Explorer window and navigate to where I've got an audio file. And to add this audio file as the audio for this theme, I'm just going to drag it from the Explorer window and drop it into the timeline window. Now the timeline window over here is basically it's just a repository for the media that you're using in that menu. In this case, I'm using this sunshine piece of artwork. You can see that in the video portion of the timeline. And I just dropped a piece of audio in as the audio portion of the timeline. Now I can do some light editing here, like I can change the in and out points, but I can't chop it up like I can in Vegas Pro and create edits in that video or audio. It's not that kind of a timeline, but it gives me a representation of the audio and video that I have in there. So now I have my menu in place, I have some audio in place. Time to start adding the movies. Well, before you can add the movies, you actually have to create the movies, right? So I'm going to jump back to Vegas Pro for a second and take a look at a couple of things. When we're in Vegas Pro and we're done with our video, we need to render it out in a format that DVD Architect will understand. And so I'm going to choose File, Render As. And here in the Render As dialog box, let me see if I can zoom in on that just a little bit. You have, of course, several different options for how you want to render your file. If you're creating a DVD, you don't really have a choice. You're going to choose the main concept MPEG-2 format, and then the appropriate template from the template list. Now, I could choose any of these DVD templates. I normally choose to use one of the video-only templates for DVD Architect. In fact, this DVD Architect NTS widescreen video stream is the one I typically use. It's going to give me just the video portion of my file. Then, once that's done rendering, I go up and I choose Dolby AC3 for the audio portion. So I render the video and the audio separately, since the DVD is going to want an MPEG-2 and AC3 for the audio. I figure I might as well render those right from Vegas Pro separately. Now, if you render to the wrong format and you take it to DVD Architect will work with it, and it'll use it. But basically, what happens then is it has to re-encode it from whatever you encoded it to the proper formats, which are MPEG-2 and AC3. So you might as well do it right from the gate in the Render As dialog box. If you're rendering for Blu-ray, you have two choices, as we saw earlier. You can choose the MPEG-2 option and then use one of the Blu-ray templates, or choose Sony AVC and then choose one of the Blu-ray templates from here. So that's how you get your file ready for DVD Architect. Let's go back to DVD Architect. Now we've got the files ready, and we're ready to start building our disk. To add the movie file to DVD Architect is very simple, and there's actually several different ways you could do it. I'm going to show you the simplest way, and then I'm going to show you a way that I consider to be a little bit better and a little bit more flexible. So the easiest way to do it is to navigate to where you've got the video, and you actually saw me do this accidentally a moment ago, just drag that file and drop it onto the timeline. I'm left-clicking and I'm dropping it onto the timeline. That creates a button and imports that movie into your project. Now, as I said, that's probably the simplest way. It's the most straightforward way. But it's not the most flexible way, and it's not the way I prefer to do it, and I'll show you why. With the button selected here, the properties window is showing button properties, and this is an area of DVD Architect that I think is highly underutilized by a lot of users, and I think it's because they don't really understand it. But it's actually a very simple tool to use. The button properties window basically is just going to show you whatever pertains to whatever you've got selected in your timeline. So let me move my button over here a little bit, and then I'll zoom in on both of these so you can see them a little bit better. So there you see my button in the timeline, or in the workspace, and you see my button properties window over here. If I deselect the button, I'll click away from it and deselect it. Now my properties menu says menu page properties. So again, it's just going to show me the properties that relate to whatever I've got selected in my workspace. So let's select the button again and take a look at why I think this isn't the most flexible or best way to add videos to your project. If I go to the Action tab, the Action tab tells me what's going to happen when the user selects this button. And notice the command property is set to link. So it's going to link, this button is going to link to a destination called In Flight, which is the name of the movie that I added to it. And it lets me choose a destination chapter. It also lets me set an alternate audio track or video track or subtitle track, a couple of different things that it will let me do. But the thing I want to point out is right here in the command and destination properties. Notice that they're grayed out. And if I click them, I can't change them. Because I added that file directly from the Explorer window to my workspace, it basically hard codes that link and destination into my properties. And I can't change it later. What I think is a better way to do it, and a more flexible way to do it, let me zoom back out here, and I'll delete that button. What I think is a more flexible way to do it is to utilize the project overview window on the left side of the screen here. And this is another window that I think is somewhat underutilized by many users. The project overview window gives you a tool with which you can keep track of your project, navigate your project, and do a bunch of different things. Watch what happens when I take, just like I did a moment ago, take that file and drop it straight from the Explorer window into the workspace. So just drop it in there. Notice that in my project overview window, and maybe I can zoom in on that for you a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. Notice that in my project overview window, the in-flight video that I dropped is a sub-item of the airplane ride main menu that I have. If instead I make that in-flight video a sub of the root of the disk, I have more flexibility. And I'll show you what I mean. I think what I'm going to do is move the button properties window over to this area so you can see that at the same time as you're seeing what we're focused on here. So I dropped the button, I dropped it onto the timeline, and as we saw earlier, I can't change the link or the destination of that button because it's a sub of that menu. Let me delete that button. So I'll just right-click it and delete it. And I'll add the button again. Now you won't be able to see me. I'm going to go down to the Explorer window and drag that button, but this time, instead of dropping it onto the Explorer window, I'm going to drop it instead onto the root level of that disk. Notice how now the video is a root of the disk. And from there, I can drag it into my project. Now here's the difference. Notice in the properties window, the command property and the destination property are now active, and I can change them. And I can now make this button do whatever I want it to do or go wherever I want it to go. I'm not going to change it right now, but in a moment we'll come back to it, and you'll see why I think that's important. Okay, so now I've got this button in my workspace, and let's take a look at a couple other properties of the button. I don't particularly like the button artwork that they've given me here from this theme that I chose, and so I could add custom button artwork. And to do that, I can go to the Media tab, and I've got a button style. I can make it text and image as it is now, or I can make it text only. So you see now it's just the text. I could change it to image only, so it's just the image and so forth. I'm going to set it back to text and image. I've got thumbnail media. I've got a thumbnail media option here, and right now it tells me what is being used as the thumbnail. By default, when I add a video to the project like this, the button uses that video as the thumbnail. Now you can see that thumbnail is just black because the video that I added starts out in the black. But I can change the start time property and just use this slider to find a more representative frame of the video that I want to use as my thumbnail. So that's a handy tool right there. I could change it from a still image to an animated button if I want to. I'm going to leave it at still. But these are the kinds of things that you can do with the button properties window when you start to understand how it works. Now with the thumbnail media and the mask setting and the frame setting, these are all the things that make up the artwork of this button. And I'm going to take those off one by one just so you can see what it would look like without all those parameters set. So I'm going to remove the thumbnail media property. Now it has no thumbnail. I'll remove the thumbnail properties mask. So now that goes away. And I'll remove the frame. And so now it's just an empty button. And a lot of times I actually design my buttons in DVD Architect like this because I like to do, I like a tricky little technique that hopefully I don't overuse it, but I like it, so I use it a lot. And I'm going to show you what that is. If I click away from this button, you see that the button is invisible. You can see a dotted line showing where the button is, but the button itself is invisible. There's no frame, there's no thumbnail media, and so forth. What I like to do is to set my, I'm going to select the button, and set my highlight. The highlight says what is this thing going to look like when the user navigates to it in the DVD, and it highlights. So that it's the thing that makes you understand when you're looking at it which button you've got highlighted before you click the enter. And by default, it's image mask overlay. I can see what this looks like by turning on under View, Workspace Overlays. I'm going to turn on my Show Button Masks, and I'll point out that the shortcut key for that is Control B, and from now on I'll just use Control B to sort of jump back and forth between those, turning it on and turning it off. So if I turn it on, the button highlight is now on. And my Color Sets tab, Color Set number 1 dictates the color of that highlight. So let's go and change it to something that's much more noticeable, like a shocking yellow or something. See what that looks like. Okay, now because let me choose something other than yellow. Let me choose maybe a red. Yeah. Now you don't see the difference in the thumbnail because I took the thumbnail out, so you're not seeing that, but you are seeing the effect of the highlight on the text itself. But I can change back in the highlight tab, I can change the overlay, and instead of image mask overlay, which covers the whole button, I could change it to just the rectangle of the button, just the text, and so forth. What I like to do is to use the custom setting. The custom setting enables me to then go in and choose a piece of artwork that I want to use for my, my highlight. And I happen to have a piece of artwork. Whoops, that is not there. Let me see if I can find it here. And it's this airplane silhouette PNG file. So when I drop that in, you can now see that the highlight is this airplane image. Now if I turn off the image mask overlay, that's, remember, Control B, we can turn that off, and it goes away. It's still there, it only shows up if the button is highlighted. But what I like to do is to work with that on for a minute. I don't like it so big, so I'm going to adjust that a little. And what I'm going to do is to use the sizing tool. So I select the sizing tool, select that, just the image portion of the button. I'll make it a little bit smaller, and I'll place it where I want it in relation to the button. Now, in relation to the text button. Now, the text is right now centered. I'm going to just change it to left justified and move the text portion over a little bit, and just place that piece of artwork just like that. So now, if I turn off the mask overlay, you don't see the little airplane. And that's what the button is going to look like. It's just going to look like a piece of text. And when it gets highlighted, that overlay will come back on, and you'll see that in a moment. And so let me go back to my selection tool and kind of move this button into place here. Now, the reason that I talked about wanting to change the flexibility of that button and add the video to the root level of the disk instead of underneath the menu is because once I've designed that button, I can now use that same button to create new buttons. So I've got a couple of other pieces of video, and I'm going to go down to my Explorer window. I'm not going to bother taking you down there with me. I'm just going to select a couple of files and drag them and drop them into my project overview window. So now you can see that I have 3 videos in my project overview window. And there are 3 different videos that I want to include on this DVD. So now I need buttons that lead to those other 2 videos. So what I'm going to do is to select the button, the existing button in my timeline, hold my Control key, and drag that button down. Sorry. Let's do it this way. I'm going to right-click and copy so you can see it a little bit better. And then I'm going to paste it. And so there, now I've got 2 buttons. Now they both say in flight, so I can edit the text of the other one, and I think, let's call this one taxiing. Taxi in. And I'll paste another button. Whoops. And we'll call this one. And I'm just hitting F2 to get to the edit text option here. I can press F2 on my keyboard, and that lets me edit text. And this one we'll call Taking Wing. And that's the name of the other video. So now I've got 3 buttons in my timeline, or in my workspace, and I've given them all names. If I click on these buttons and we check the Action tab in the button properties, you can see that right now they all link to the in-flight video, because remember, they're just copies of that first button. But since I added them to the root level here and gave myself a little flexibility, I can now select the Taxi In button, click the destination property, and choose Taxi In. And so now that button leads to Taxi In instead of in flight. I can do the same thing with the Taking Wing. And there we go. And because I copied them all from the first button, I know that they have everything that that first button have. They have the same text treatment, the same size image treatment, the same invisible image, the same little airplane image PNG that I used for the highlight and so forth. All of that stuff is in place because I copied them from the same button. So that's why I think it's so important to give yourself the flexibility of adding these videos at the root level instead of underneath the menu. Okay, let's shift our view a little bit here, and I'll make it a little bit bigger. Actually, I should probably zoom it all the way back out, because what we can do now is to preview this, and when I preview this, you'll see the highlight that I added with that little plane, and it should all come together for you why I did that. So I'll click the preview button, and here it is. And now notice that just the in-flight button has the little airplane highlight. If I use my virtual remote control to navigate down to the next button, that one has it. And that becomes my highlight to show that that's the one that I'm choosing and the one that will play if I click enter. So that's kind of a neat trick to make an invisible button, but give it a highlight, give it a custom highlight that you can use to give your DVD a little bit of extra character. Okay. Real quickly, a couple other things that I want to talk about are creating a scene selection menu. A scene selection menu is very easy to create in DVD Architect, and the way to do it, the way we're going to do it is we're going to first navigate into this in-flight video and add some scene selection markers to it, and then we'll create the scene selection menu from those markers. Now, to navigate into this movie, there are a couple of different ways we can do it. One of them is to just double-click the movie in the project overview window. And another way is to just double-click the button that leads to it. So let me go ahead and double-click that button. When I double-click that button, it brings the movie up. Remember, the first frame of that video is black, and you can see that down here in the timeline. And so the video in the workspace is black. But in the timeline, again, you've got the video portion and the audio portion. And I can either play through this or just kind of click through it or scroll through it to find points that I want to use as chapter points. So let's say right here I want to create a chapter point. And to add a chapter point, I'm just going to find the right button here and click the Insert Scene Chapter Marker. It drops it there, and I'll say tail. I'll call that scene the tail. Let's just kind of randomly do a couple more here. Here's one that we'll call taxiing. So I add a marker and call it taxi. And maybe two more here just so we can see this. All right, there you are in the sky. So I'll add one and call it sky. And one more toward the end, which is coming in. So all I'm doing is I'm adding markers to my timeline down here. And let me zoom in a little bit so you can see those markers a little bit more effectively. So you see that I added these markers. I can move them. I can rename them. I can place them wherever I want to put them, and so forth. If I had embedded those markers into the rendered file right out of Vegas, then they would just appear here automatically, and then I could adjust them from there. Once I have those markers in my timeline, and remember I have 5 of them, let's navigate back to the main menu. And to do that, I'm just going to double-click the main menu button in the project overview window. And we're back at the main menu. I'm going to put the menu page properties button back where it normally is, just so that you get your bearings about where you'd be looking at it in its default form. And now I can right-click the in-flight button and choose Insert Scene Selection Menu. It brings up this dialog box here. I'll zoom in on that so you can see it. And in this dialog box, I can say the name of this. So maybe I call it Flight Scenes. And I can dictate how many links I want per page. Now we had 5 chapters, so 6 will be just fine here, and I'll just click OK. It creates a new button. It's called My Scene Selection. And if I navigate into that button now leads to a new menu. Let me just back out a little bit here so you can see it all. Navigate into that, and brings me to the new menu, which is the Flight Scenes menu. And notice it's all done for me. It's got my title, it's got the 5 buttons that correspond to the 5 markers that I put in the timeline, it's got a button that leads back to the main menu, and it's just all done for me. So it's a very automatic and fast way of creating scene selection menu. And if you look over in the project overview window here, let me scoot over there for you, you can see that I now have, in addition to the original airplane ride menu, I have now a new menu, the Flight Scenes menu. So very easy to create a scene selection menu. Let's go back to the main menu, and let me show you just real quickly one more thing before we have to wrap it up here. If I want to create a playlist that will play all of these buttons, all of these videos one after another, it's very simple to do. I'm going to come over to my project overview window and click the Insert Object button and insert a playlist. It brings up the Select Titles box, which I'm just going to select all of those and say OK. It adds a playlist to my project overview window. I'm going to make a copy of one of the buttons in my window and paste it. I'm going to change the name of that, F2, and change the name of that to, I'll just call it Playlist. And back in the Project Properties window, which is over here, I'm going to change the action of that from taking wing and point it to Playlist number 1. So now I've created a playlist that leads to each one of these movies in succession. Let's go all the way back out here so we can see the whole interface. And I'll click the Playlist tab down here in the window docking area, and the Playlist tab just shows me the order in which these videos will play. I can reorder them if I want to. Maybe In Flight should be the first one, so I'll put that up. Reorder it however I want to, add new videos to the playlist, and so forth. Okay, so that's adding scene selections and playlists. All right, let's straighten things out here a little bit and make this look a little nicer. Maybe I want my scene selection and everything to line up perfectly down here, so I can just kind of put them generally in the area that I want them. I'm going to hold my Control key as I select each one of them, including the menu text, and I want to line them all up with that menu text. So I've got these buttons over here, these alignment tools. I'm just going to align them left. They all line up perfectly with the menu text. I'm going to deselect the menu text. In fact, I'll deselect all of them, and I'll select just the video or the buttons again. This one looks like it might be a little bit low, so I'm going to move it up. Obviously, I don't want it sitting on top of the other one. I want to space these evenly, so I can select all of them and click the Space Down button, and it just spaces them out evenly for me. These are great tools. These alignment and spacing tools are really helpful tools for when you're trying to make your menu look nice and line things up. All right, I want to get to the question and answer session, so let's jump into how we would make the DVD once we've created everything that we want to create. You've got a Make DVD button. Click that button, and you just walk through the options here. Again, I can zoom in on this so you can see that a little bit better. Let's do that. Okay, so here's the Make DVD wizard dialog box, and you basically just make some choices and go. So if I'm burning this to a disk, I'm going to click Burn. It takes me to the next page of the wizard, and I just make my choices here. I want to burn the current project, so that's great. I'm going to say Next. Here it's giving me some information about my project. It's saying the audio on track 1 of Airplane Ride will be recompressed. That's where I was talking about earlier, where if you don't save your file as an AC3 file for the audio or an MPEG-2 file for the video, DVD Architect will do the right thing and make it what you need it to be. And it's just telling me it's going to recompress that. And it's giving me some other information here as well. The Optimize box is something that a lot of people overlook and is really a helpful tool. So let's go into the Optimize dialog box for a second. Here you can get a glimpse at exactly what's going to happen in your project. A green check mark means that file is already in the right format, so DVD Architect isn't going to touch it. It's just going to use the format, the file as you gave it to it. But the yellow exclamation box here shows you that in all cases my audio or my video is going to be recompressed because I didn't save it properly somehow. But I just wanted to point out that DVD Architect, if it recognizes that you've done the right thing, it's just going to use what you gave it. If it recognizes that you didn't give it the right thing, it's going to recompress it for you, and you'll still end up with a good disk. The default video bitrate and estimated size parameters down here are really important as well. if you come into your optimized dialog box and you see, in my case, I'm only using 10% of the disk, so I've got no problems. But if I'm using 110%, I could drop my default video bitrate down and make a little bit more room on the disk. So this is a good thing to check just to make sure you've got that you're utilizing all the room that you have, or that you're not using too much space for the disk to hold. Okay, once you're done there, click OK. Then you say Next, and it starts doing a little analysis and brings you to the burn dialog box, where again you choose your burner and your speed and click Finish. Okay, now we've been working in a DVD project. Let's zoom back out here again. And let's say we now wanted to burn a Blu-ray from the same project. Well, I'm going to choose File, Properties, change my project to Blu-ray disc, set all these parameters as we saw earlier, say OK, and now my Make DVD button has turned into a Make Blu-ray disc button. And it's the same procedure. Click the button, choose your options, and just carry on. All right. So that's sort of beginning to end on how you would make a DVD or Blu-ray in DVD Architect, as well as we saw at the beginning of the presentation, right off the timeline in Vegas Pro. So we've got a little less than 15 minutes left for some questions. I've got Matt over here engineering the whole show, and he's going to read some questions for you, and I'll do my best to answer them if I can. Matt?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I just want to remind everyone that we receive probably hundreds of questions normally during these webinars. And when you submit questions, they may not immediately be shown in our chat room. And since we receive so many and we only have a limited amount of time, we can only answer a few today. But we'll definitely attempt to answer as many questions as we can and try to post them online with written answers once we get our on-demand version ready. Usually that's within about 2 weeks.
Right, and let me just jump in, Matt, and say that typically we get that done in about 2 weeks. This time out, we've got the NAB trade show coming up in about a week or so, so we are pretty busy trying to prepare for that. We may not get to all the questions as fast as we normally do, so maybe what we'll do, and Matt and I will talk about this, but potentially what we'll do is just put the presentation up and not post the questions until we kind of get back from NAB and decompress and have some time to work on those.
But yeah, always receive really great questions, and we'll try to answer just a couple now. So the first question is very basic. A person asks, I activated the downloadable Vegas Pro, and I don't think I got DVD Architect. How does that work? So if they're downloading Vegas from the website and testing it out, or maybe they purchased it,
yeah,
do they need to install something else?
Right, that is a good question. DVD Architect is a completely separate installer from Vegas Pro. So if you downloaded the trial version from the website of Vegas Pro, you've got just Vegas Pro. So all you need to do is go back to the website and download the trial version of DVD Architect, and you'll be good to go.
Excellent. Next question. When he renders his video and audio so he can create a DVD, did he render it in 2 steps or 1 step with separate files? So can you explain how that works?
Yeah, I did render it in 2 steps because when I was working on the DVD Architect, not DVD Architect, the DVD spec dictates that the audio portion has to be either a PCM or an AC3 file, and the video portion has to be an MPEG-2 file. So if I was to use the MPEG-2 file for both the audio and the video, the audio portion of an MPEG-2 file is not AC3 and it's not PCM, so DVD Architect would have to re-render that for me. So instead of doing that, I rendered first just the video portion, and then I went back and rendered the audio portion as an AC3 file. Now, what I didn't show you in Vegas Pro is that you can use the batch rendering script in Vegas Pro to do both of those in sort of one batch operation and kind of speed things up a little bit. But typically your AC3 file, that render happens very quickly, so it's really not that big of a deal to just render them separately.
Great, and just to let people know, I just posted a link that will take you over to our knowledge base. And it will automatically search for you topics related to DVD burning. There's a lot of great information about that in our knowledge base. Next question asks, how do I decide which video template to use? For instance, should I use 60 interlace or 24 progressive? So can you touch on that?
Yeah, let's just go back to the computer here and go back to Vegas Pro. There's really no one single answer to that question. You basically have to decide what you want to deliver. If you're delivering a DVD or a Blu-ray that's going to be playing on one of the newer TVs that supports progressive scan, then you could, under the Render As dialog box, let's say we're choosing MPEG-2, then you can choose one of the progressive formats. If you're delivering for an older TV that uses interlacing, then you're going to probably want to use one of the interlacing formats. So it's really going to be different for everybody in every different situation, and that just is unfortunately one of the things that you have to kind of get a little familiar with, how that works, and so if you're working for a client, know what they need and what they're going to be showing this DVD on and so forth.
Great. I think we have time for about 2 more questions.
Okay.
The next question, I'll combine a couple here. Where do you get the new themes that you're working with? And maybe the second one, are you able to create your own themes with your own background? I can try to answer the first one. I know in DVD Architect Pro 5.2, part of that update was including some new themes set up for high definition. So if you don't already have the upgrade to Vegas Pro 10 with DVD Architect 5.2, you might consider downloading a trial to take a look at those and maybe upgrading. So we did include some new themes with DVD Architect Pro 5.2.
Yep, that's right. And all the themes that you see that you saw here in my presentation are included with 5.2. So there's nothing special that you have to do to get those.
And I know you talked a little bit during your presentation about kind of creating your own customized menu background. Can you talk a little bit about maybe creating your own themes and saving those as templates for later?
Yes, I can. It's actually pretty easy to do. If I've decided now that I've created this theme, and this is a theme that I want to use for in many other projects or for the rest of this project, I can export this as a theme. I don't do this very often, so I'm going to have to try to guess where this is. Here it is, under the File menu, Export Menu as Theme. So basically, I just choose File, Export Menu as Theme, and give it a name, save it, and that becomes then a theme that automatically then is going to appear down here in my Themes window, and I can apply it to any other menu or any other project, just like I do any other theme that I have.
Great. Last question. What make and model PC are you using for Vegas Pro?
Well, the PC that I'm using right now for this presentation, let me turn the camera back on so you can see it a little bit better. Kind of hard to see in the video, but I'm using a Sony Vaio all-in-one machine, and it's really a nice machine. And basically, what you see on the screen here is the entire computer. I'd try to move it, but I don't want to lose any of my connections, or we'll lose our stream here. But basically, it's the entire computer sitting on my desktop, taking up the same space as a as a monitor would. So this is, I'm going to look at the tag over here. It's a VP-CL135FX Sony all-in-one computer. Very nice Vaio. And I want to thank the Vaio team for setting us up with that. All right. We probably do you have another one, Matt?
Yeah, let me look through the list here. We've got a lot, so I can definitely scare up at least one more question. The next question asks, okay, so the question asks, what kind of Blu-ray burner is required to burn a Blu-ray disc? So do we have any specific models of Blu-ray burners that we need to burn Blu-ray, or could you use a DVD burner, or how does that work?
Yeah, there's no specific model of Blu-ray burner that you need to have. Basically, any burner should work just fine. If it conforms to the specs of burning, then we'll work with it just fine. The other part of your question is the more interesting part, the part about can I burn a Blu-ray disc with a DVD burner? The answer is actually yes. You can burn Blu-ray, a Blu-ray image to a standard DVD. Now, of course, you're not going to get nearly as much material on that DVD as you will on a Blu-ray. The DVD tops out at under 5 gig, and a Blu-ray burner at something, or a Blu-ray disc at something around 25 gigs. So you're going to get a lot less on that DVD. But if you have just a short piece of video that you need to view in a Blu-ray player, you could burn it with a DVD burner onto a DVD, and it'll work as a Blu-ray. Then, of course, you'll just have to have a Blu-ray player to play that disc. I think we got time for one more, Matt.
One more, all right. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so can you burn a non-region DVD? I want it to be playable worldwide. So I know in the project properties, most likely.
Yeah, and if you go to the file properties, and I'll even zoom in on it for you. That will make you be able to see it even better. Okay, so what I did is I went to the project properties, and I clicked the regions tab here, and there at the top of the regions list, it just says all regions, and it's set to yes. So very simple to do, and it's basically the same for a DVD project as well. Okay, so it looks like we're coming right up on the top of the hour. That's about all we've got time for. As I said, as Matt said, we get a lot of questions when we do these presentations, and we'll do our best to answer them as fast as we can when we post this thing up for on-demand playback. But whether we have all the questions answered or not, we'll try to get the video portion of this up within 2 weeks so that you can come back and review it again if you want to. We do have a bunch of training materials available at SonyCreativeSoftware.com/training. We have the seminar series training packages. We have free training videos, and all of our webinar archives are up there. Monthly newsletter archives. So a lot of material up there that you can use to learn all of our software. For those of you that are going to NAB in a little more than a week here, we'd love to see you at the booth. Stop by. We'll be in the big Sony booth this year, so real easy to find. Stop by, say hello. Matt and I will both be there, and would love to meet you and talk to you, so come on in. So if you're going to NAB, we'll see you there. If not, then we'll see you at the next webinar. So long, and thanks for being here.